the other side always makes this a upper caste versus lower caste fight, and that's why, the sacrifice of unfortunately, the only Bahujan who has died in this fight so far has been Milanji, and I always point that out. But also, they just sideline everybody who doesn't speak for them. So, like, I'm part of CoHNA, and Sudha Jagannathan is on our board. She's Bahujan herself. She is the one who led the fight in California. And she was on every call saying, I am a Bahujan. I completely oppose this. Who are you to talk about me? Aldrin Deepakji is a very, he's a Dalit. And he has pushed back against this. Sandeep Dedageji, there's a whole organization now called Apna DB, which have avidly advocated on this issue. But see, they were not the right kind of testimony that they wanted to hear. And Shama Sawant actually pretty much dished them and said, oh, you'll hear from all these people trying to create, she literally attacked all of, Sandeep ji, Sudha ji, Apna DB, all of these people in one of her testimony. So this was not a upper caste versus lower caste fight. This was a Hindu Americans of all socially, economic, diverse backgrounds standing up for equal treatment. That was it, actually. All we wanted was equal treatment. And it's really sad how hard we had to struggle for that, because it was I can tell you, 2 weeks from the time we found out this law was being changed, and I come from Senator Wahhab's district, the lady who introduced this bill. So, and she introduced it in a very sneaky manner. She introduced it as a very innocuous bill. On the last day possible to amend a bill per California processes, she completely changed the text. And oh, by the way, this change was announced by Equality Labs on a local Bay Area NBC channel, and it was tabled in Senate the next day. I mean, I can't imagine such a strange situation where a Senate finds out about a bill after it has been announced on media, right? And so we swung into action that very evening when we got information about that interview. And 2 weeks after that interview, Indian Americans, such a laid-back community, 250 of us were in front of Senator Wahhab's office asking for our voices to be heard, because she's my senator. She was the senator of 200 people who showed up there and said, Senator Wahhab, we are your constituents. You have not even bothered to have one meeting with us since this bill has been announced. We have been emailing you, calling you, asking for a meeting. You're not meeting with us. And we kept up the pressure. April 4th was that first one, April 25th, in July and September, and lots of small demonstrations, people going to meet their lawmakers in person. The pressure was relentless. I mean, people poured their heart and soul into this because it is an existential threat. And I don't want to talk about it in the past tense because, the other side has threatened us, and we know that they will be back. They will be back in another state, maybe in California, maybe in a state where we're not as strong as, we were in California. And I also want to want people this is caste as a bipartisan issue, in some sense. Yeah, right now it's being hammered by the progressives, but Hindu hate runs on both sides of the aisle, and at CoHNA we have battled both of them, the extreme right, the extreme left, the caste. And a lot of if you look at what happened in UK, for example, where it's so hard to talk about the caste issue in succinct, but it was a very similar set of issues that led to the introduction of the caste law in UK that was fought off, and there it was heavily propped up by the churches, and they learned from that, and they presented it in a different way in the US, and it really took hold in the US because of this progressive, the conflation of race and this oppressor-oppressed paradigm, where they've sort of painted us as the oppressors. And so once that happens, logic and facts really don't matter. And you're actually seeing that play out right now with the surge of anti-Semitism, right? Because if you happen to be put in a certain category, anything can be done to you and it will be justified. And if you happen to be in the oppressed category, you could do anything and it is also justified. So I think that's why it's a really, really dangerous binary situation to be in. And I think it's very important that Indians in India, Indian Americans, Hindus everywhere, they get educated and they get the power to fight back, because it really is something that you need to speak up for yourself. I come from the comms industry, and there's this old saying that if you don't tell your story, somebody's going to tell it, and that's what's happened to us. Other people have told our story to us.